If you're applying to more than a couple of colleges, you've probably got at least a dozen essays to work through. You might have noticed that a lot of schools have essay prompts that share similar themes and topics, even if they're technically asking different questions or approaching the same question from different angles. In this video, we're going to go through the 5 main types of supplemental essays you'll encounter, review example prompts from Ivy League and elite colleges, and cover some strategies on how to answer them in a way that will set you apart from other applicants. Number 1, the diversity essay. In the diversity essay, colleges are seeking evidence that you're open-minded and willing to see things from other points of view. And while you're free to write about racial or ethnic diversity, you may also write about cultural, social, religious, socioeconomic, or other forms of diversity. Here's a prompt example from Princeton. Princeton values community and encourages students, faculty, staff, and leadership to engage in respectful conversations that can expand their perspectives and challenge their ideas and beliefs. As a prospective member of this community, reflect on how your lived experiences will impact the conversations you will have in the classroom, the dining hall, or other campus spaces. What lessons have you learned in life thus far? What will your classmates learn from you? In short, how has your lived experience shaped you? Princeton's diversity essay prompt provides a great framework to build your essay around. First, it establishes what diversity often looks like in action as students, faculty, staff, and leadership engage in respectful conversations with each other. It highlights how these conversations enable members of the Princeton community to widen their horizons, challenge their own preconceived notions or biases, and exchange new ideas and perspectives. Then it asks you, the applicant, to share what life experiences have shaped your own individual point of view and to describe how you'll personally contribute to those conversations going on around campus. The best way to respond to this prompt is to give specific examples that illustrate your upbringing, often by telling a brief story or two. What makes you, you? Think about the geographic, cultural, religious, or socioeconomic setting you grew up in. Consider the individuals or communities who have surrounded you at different points in your life. Make a list of the things or values that matter most to you. Then identify what about your upbringing has caused those things to become so important to you. Do you feel a personal connection to nature because you grew up in the mountains, hiking with friends and family most weekends? As someone who grew up in a bilingual home, do you express yourself differently depending on the language you're speaking? Were you raised in a religious home that shaped your outlook on faith and spirituality? Has painting, music, or writing helped you navigate challenges and make sense of the world over the years? Have you witnessed or even personally experienced discrimination at some point in your life? Diversity essays are your chance to show colleges what kind of experience you have with navigating different social and cultural contexts, or how you'll contribute to conversations and activities on campus based on your own perspective gained from your background or identity. A couple of topics to avoid for the diversity essay include a single short-term cultural event or a short mission trip to an underprivileged community. Typically, these experiences don't last long enough to fundamentally alter your perspective or your understanding of a community. The topic can come off as cliché, reductionist, or insensitive, especially when you have to condense your essay to just a couple hundred words. If one of those experiences served as a catalyst for you to learn and engage more deeply with a community or culture, you'll be better off writing about what came after the event or mission trip. And 2, suddenly realizing that you appreciate your family's cultural heritage. Writing about learning to appreciate your own heritage isn't a bad topic in itself, but it's crucial that you don't gloss over the growth journey and challenges that brought you to the point you're at now. Why didn't you appreciate your heritage before? What specific event or realization sparked a change? What action did you take to start engaging with your heritage? What does your heritage mean to you now? How will your heritage influence the way you interact with and converse with people you meet at Princeton? Number 2, the community essay. These prompts are meant to give colleges a sense of who you are, not just as an individual, but as a member of a larger community. As a student in a group project, a member of an extracurricular club, a resident of the dorms, and a part of the student body. Your first instinct might be to write about a community service activity. How much more community-oriented can you get, right? But community can be defined in many ways. A group of people living in the same geographic location, a group of people who share a similar ethnic, cultural, or gender identity, a group of people who share a religion, or even a group of people who share a common interest like art or video games. A great example of the community essay prompt can be found on the Yale application. Reflect on your membership in a community to which you feel connected. Why is this community meaningful to you? You may define community however you like. Keep in mind that the community essay doesn't need to be about showing off your accomplishments or leadership. Write about a community that matters to you, not the one you think makes you look the most impressive. Then focus on your role within that community. What strengths and skills do you have to offer to others? Are you a team player? How do you bring others together to work towards a common goal? How do you resolve conflicts? A couple of topics to avoid for the community essay include getting voted the captain of a sports team or the president of a club. This could work if you tell a very specific story about a challenge you faced and overcame once you took on that role, or about how that community has become an important part of your identity. But otherwise, your essay likely won't stand out among the hundreds of other essays written by other high-achieving high schoolers. And 2, infrequent volunteer experiences or club meetings. You should only write about a community that has played a significant role in your life or with which you strongly identify. So instead of writing about volunteering at your local food pantry just once a year at Thanksgiving, it would probably be better to write about the small book club you joined at your local library, which meets every month to talk about 19th century Gothic literature. Number 3, the hardship essay. When it comes to hardship essays, colleges want to know that you have enough life experience under your belt to cope with challenges you'll meet in the future. Writing about how you overcame a hardship, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, and what life lessons you learned from it, will show schools that you're ready to tackle any challenge that comes your way in college. Sometimes this will be an optional prompt where you're asked only to respond if you face hardships or extenuating circumstances such as illness or natural disaster that have significantly affected your academic performance or extracurricular involvement. However, other schools just want you to tell them about how you handle failure or pull yourself through a challenge. One example of the hardship essay comes from MIT. How did you manage a situation or challenge that you didn't expect? What did you learn from it? This prompt is pretty straightforward. Notice their choice of words. They ask you to write about how you dealt with a specific unexpected situation or challenge, not about how you handle unexpected situations or challenges in general. They're asking you to tell a story, so make sure your essay reads like a story. Leave plenty of room at the end of the essay for reflection too, where you describe what you learned from that particular experience and how you've applied that lesson to other challenges you faced since then. It's usually a good idea to give a hypothetical example of how you'll apply that same lesson to challenges you anticipate facing in college too. A couple of topics to avoid for the hardship essay include someone else's hardship. This essay, as with other essays you write for your college applications, should be about you. Don't fall into the trap of writing about someone else's experience, no matter how interesting it is. And 2, overly general or universal hardships, like taking a difficult class or living through the COVID-19 pandemic. It's okay to write about a very specific or unique hardship that took place during the pandemic, but essays about life during the pandemic in general won't stand out as unique. Number 4, the major essay. Now let's talk about the major essay. Nearly every college will ask you to write an essay explaining what you want to study and why. They need to get a sense of what's motivating you and how invested you are in your chosen area of study so they can determine whether the major is truly a good fit for you and whether you'll thrive under the conditions and requirements of that particular department. Some colleges want you to have a first choice and second choice major already picked out, and others just want you to have determined a solid few options that you'll later choose between, like this prompt from the Cornell College of Arts and Sciences. At the College of Arts and Sciences, curiosity will be your guide. Discuss how your passion for learning is shaping your academic journey and what areas of study or majors excite you and why. Your response should convey how your interests align with the college and how you would take advantage of the opportunities and curriculum in arts and sciences. As you can see, Cornell's prompt is somewhat open-ended. You don't need to pretend that you have the next 20 years of your life already mapped out. They just want to know what fields of study you're interested in, what life experiences instilled those interests in you, and how you envision yourself molding those interests into a career after college. Notice that Cornell specifically asks you to write about areas of study or majors, both plural. So even if you happen to know exactly what you want to major in, mention 1 or 2 additional areas of interest too. You may not get placed in your first choice major as a freshman, especially if it's very popular. And switching your major as a freshman, sophomore, or even junior is pretty common. So make sure to convey that you're flexible and open to more than just one path. A couple of topics to avoid for the major essay include why this major will make you the most money. Even if money is your main motivating factor for selecting a major, try to describe why you chose that major over all other majors associated with high-paying careers. And 2, any essay that starts with, "I've always dreamed of being a," insert career choice here, is probably going to get tossed aside. You don't have to eliminate this sentence entirely from your essay, but make sure to thoroughly explain what motivated that dream and what actions you've taken towards pursuing it over the years. While it's okay to mention that you've wanted to be a doctor since you were 5, it's much more important that you also articulate what's happened in the time between then and now. Number 5, the intellectual vitality essay. Finally, we have the intellectual vitality essay. Across the Ivy League schools, intellectual vitality is one of the most prevalent factors admissions committees are looking for. This is essentially your hunger for learning and the curiosity that drives you to explore new things and consider new perspectives. Colleges pride themselves on being the birthplace of new ideas, innovations, and movements, and this prompt will help them understand how you'll contribute to that atmosphere. Often the prompt will ask you to write about one of your hobbies. Or sometimes, as in the case of the University of Chicago, it'll challenge you to think outside the box and to tackle a question like, what modern game do you believe will withstand the test of time and why? Stanford's intellectual vitality prompt reads, the Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. If you're not sure how to respond to this prompt, ask yourself the following questions. What do I spend hours researching on Wikipedia? What topic have I watched half a dozen Netflix documentaries about? What kind of museum exhibit do I gravitate toward? What are some of my niche or unique hobbies? The answer to any of these questions will likely be a great starting point for your intellectual vitality essay. A couple of topics to avoid for the intellectual vitality essay include a class you are required to take. Unless you took an unconventional approach to a project or research assignment within that class, this information doesn't display your eagerness to go above and beyond what's required of you. And 2, an activity you stopped participating in before entering high school. For all of your supplemental essays, you want to focus on writing about events from within roughly the past 4 years. It's okay to reach farther back in time in order to tell the beginning of a story that continues into your high school years. But if you're a member of a robotics club from 5th to 8th grade, don't tell that story. Tell the story of how your middle school robotics background led you to take some free online courses about biomedical engineering and build a functioning prosthetic arm prototype out of household items last summer. Once you've familiarized yourself with these 5 main supplemental essay types, you'll find it easier to read between the lines of each prompt and identify exactly what a college wants to see in your response. Still, the wording and nuance of each prompt can vary quite a bit from school to school. To see these strategies in action, check out our College Supplemental Essays Premium Example Hub, where you can read hundreds of example essays we've written in response to all of this year's supplemental essay prompts for the top universities in the US.